Hoof, hoof, hoof. It's the doghouse. It's the doghouse. Get bit, get bit, big buck, staying lit. Get bit. Hey, from the 985 to the 601, we getting bit. Buck bites. Hey, yeah. Coming at you live with your boy Big Buck from the 985 to the 601, coming to teach you what we know. It's another edition of Buck Bites, and today it's the International Day of Democracy, y'all. I tell you, I mean, it's a good thing that we have democracy in the U.S. of A., but at the same time, it don't even really seem like that anymore because we can't even stick together like glue. We always battling at each other's necks, you know. It seems like we can't agree to disagree. It don't seem like we can ever agree on anything together. So really don't even seem like we have a democracy anymore. The word democracy comes from two Greek words, demos meaning people and kratos meaning rule. The father of democracy is old ancient Greek man named Clisthenes. He was basically the founder of democracy years ago, like way before, back in 508 BCE, before Christ era. Yes, indeed, way before. So he was the founder of democracy, and a lot of things that we have today, we are blessed to have because of the Greeks, because they just had such a way of thinking with agriculture and philosophy and infrastructure, as well as some of them came up with math, aerodynamics, and so much more. It'd be a whole list of the things that the Greeks came up with and that we still use to this day. And so we are thankful for them, but each and every year that passes, we continue to expand from the masses of what they started out with, so that we can continue to grow, and so that's a good thing. But with it being the International Day of Democracy, just make sure that you, as a community, as a person, whoever you may be, man, female, white, black, butter pecan, Puerto Rican, whoever it is that you may be and claim to be and see, make sure that when it comes time to VOTE, that you're doing the right thing, that you're going out to the polls, that you're going out and doing your research to look up who you trying to put up in office, for no matter if that's the president, the mayor, the senator, the congressman, city councilman. It don't matter if it's just a PTA meeting, somebody on the PTA board at your son and daughter's school. Make sure you're doing what's right, because like I said, all the time, people ain't always out for you. They're not always trying to benefit you. And the thing is, as a democracy, we should be always trying to help one another. We shouldn't always try to say, oh, let me get this and not return that, But the world that we've been living in for, I've been on this earth for 25 years now, but some of you have been living longer. It's just, the world we live in is very selfish, very selfish, and a lot of people only care about themselves. They care less about the working class, the poor folk. Some people just want to worry about me. Shout out to old Thomas Rowell. I know every time I tell him a story back at the Kentwood Co-op, he'd be like, oh, Buck, it's not always about us. You always talk about it's about us, but every time I see you talking, it's about me. But he's always joking. I was never like that. He'd always be talking just because I'm telling a silly story, because I'd always have stories to tell. Y'all know Big Buck, full of stories. I'm glad and I'm blessed to have a democracy, because a lot of countries, they have dictatorships, they have capitalist societies and countries, and so much more. There's so many other types of forms of government that I haven't even dove in depth in. But I would say that the democracy is the best thing to have, because if you don't have a democracy, I mean, and imagine if we didn't have a democracy and we just had a dictatorship, that means we'd have a ruler that's over us, telling us when to do everything, how we got to do it, and not even telling us why, just telling us this is what it's going to be and this is how it's going to be, and there ain't no changing it. With us having a democracy, sometimes it may not feel like we really have that anymore, because it seems like that our voices are being taken away, and sometimes on some issues it does feel like that and it seems like that. And I can attest to that just because of the way things have changed and progressed. But we just have to keep rolling with the motions and hope to get better as a country and a nation, to see the brighter day and the brighter future with that. And hopefully one day that we will get back to the original democracy, that is for the people and by the people, where the people are the ones that form a government, because that's what a democracy is the people coming together to form a government, to to elect a leader to, I would say, not rule, but to make decisions, to be a president, city councilman, governor, etc., to be in charge, basically, to have a leader. We elect a leader to be in charge, but also at the same time, we want that person to hear what we have to say. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes it's the people. The reason why we put these people in office is because, oh, okay, well, he lowered gas prices, he found better jobs for people, he likes this type of sports team, he feels about this on this type of view, he feels that way on that type of view. But sometimes some people are only trying to benefit themselves. And when I say that, the leaders that we elect sometimes only really benefit themselves whenever we get them in the office, because the leaders that we have to pick from, sometimes they will tell you this and that, like they will say that they agree with you, and that they believe what you believe just to get where they need to be. And that's not always what should be. But you have to see through the BS and know the true value of their meaning and what they want. I tell a lot of people all the time, like, they ask me, like, Buck, who you gonna vote for, like, for the next city councilman? Who you gonna vote for when it comes to mayor or governor, or who you gonna vote for when it comes to president? And I tell them, I was like, well, I can't really tell you right now, because I'm still diving through. I'm still checking out, crossing my T's, dotting my I's, you know what I mean? So I'm still trying to see who's gonna be who I think would help benefit not just myself, but everyone else, because, and I can't speak for everyone else. I can only speak for me. But me being a working class young man, I'm thinking about the other individuals that I know that's not only my age, but in my area, in my surrounding communities, that would like to see better and do better for not only themselves, but their people as well. So those are some of the things that you have to think about when you are electing these people to run the country or run your town or your state, etc. So, and one thing we also have to think about is everything that we ask for, we're not going to be able to see, because in a democracy, we got two sides. You got an opposing side and it's got like a pro and a con. Basically, we got two sides. We got the Democrats and we got the Republicans. When it comes to that, we can't agree to disagree. We can barely see eye to eye on anything. I don't even like. There's very few times and stipulations where they do see eye to eye on some little occasion, but for the most part, they don't agree. And so it's hard to say you have to get things that you want in your community, in your area, as well as around the world, if you have a Democratic president, but you have a Republican House or Senate, because a lot of these things, even though we as the nation elected this Democratic president, that doesn't mean that all the things that we may want can happen, because it still has to go through some steps. You know what I mean? It has to go through an act of Congress. It has to go through the Senate. It has to go through the House of Representatives, and so on. So before all these things can be made, just because we elect that person as an official, as a leader, that doesn't mean that they can just sign off on anything and everything just because we asked for it. It does take time. It does, because that's just the way to it does take time. That's just because that's just the way that it goes, you know. And we have to be thankful for democracy, I always say, because we could have a dictatorship and so many other things, other types of forms of government that would be so much worse on the people. Because if we were to live in a dictatorship, we wouldn't even have a choice. Basically, we wouldn't be able to do anything and pleasures and leisures of life that we do have so now. You know, there are some things that have been taken away from us, but for the most part, we can live here and do whatever we want, you know, for the most part, as long as it's not like too absurd and outrageous. Being in a dictatorship, that's a whole nother level, you know. You have somebody that's telling you how to do this and when to do it, and not really telling you why it's like that. So, and they're not giving you any type of rules or no type of background checks on, like, okay, this is why it's going to be like this. And okay, they're not going to give you any type of explanation. In a democracy, to a point, you at least get a little explanation of, this is why that happened, that is why this happened. It may not always be the best outcome that we like, but I would rather have the democracy before the dictatorship, me myself, because they don't even listen. Dictators don't even listen. It's like almost a king or a queen that would be like off of Emperor's New Groove. You know, you might get kicked out the window trying to talk crazy to them or something. I mean, you ain't talking crazy. You just trying to speak your mind. You might get kicked out the window. Go ahead, play that clip.
Yeah. No! You threw off my groove.
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove.
And I tell people all the time, when it comes to electing people, you should always try to put your 2 cents in. You should always try to hear everybody out, as well as speak your mind and do your part. Because when we elect these people, you know, I mean, you may not always get the one that you want. Like, kind of like with a football team. You may not always get the person that you want on your football team or your basketball team or in your PE class. Let's break it all even simpler. You know, you might not want that lame kid that you think is lame and probably ain't the best at sports. But hey, it is what it is. It comes down to a vote, and that was the decision that was made. But don't complain whenever you get that elected official into office, into the house, and then you didn't even vote. You didn't even put your two cents in. You didn't even listen to what he or she had to say. So with that being said, when it comes to election time, make sure that you're doing what you have to do to let your voice be heard. Put your 2 cents in. Go down to the polls and make sure that you are voting, so that you can, you know, so that you can have it. So that, I mean, it's your national right. I mean, I tell people all the time, why is it that you're not going to go vote after so many people years ago have died for your right to vote, as well as, you know, men and women. You know, I mean, men back years ago, men always had the right to vote, especially if they had land. I mean, black people, they couldn't vote because when slavery was going on, black men couldn't vote. And then some of them still couldn't vote after slavery was abolished, because they didn't own land, or just because segregation as well as racism was still going on. And so they was just discriminating all over the board. But women couldn't vote either until a certain time. I can't tell you, I can't remember the year. Don't criticize me. I I can't remember the year that women got the right to vote, but when they got the right to vote, they lined up at the polls because they was finally tired. They was finally tired of not being able to have their voices be heard because men were the only ones that were, I guess you would say, in charge. It ain't right because we are all created equal. In God we trust, as what it says on the money, but sometimes it don't always fit like that. Just in some people's eyes, I don't know why, but hey, it is what it is. But we should always be this one thing: be for the people, by the people. Let's make these decisions not just for our own selfish motives, but let's try to help everybody out. Let us all think about one another, how we can always rise on up. You know what I mean? And that's really all I got to say today. From the 985 to the 601, come to teach you what we know, son. It's another edition of Buck Bites. I hope everybody didn't listen, learn something, did the best that you could do. But make sure that you do what you're supposed to do and go out and let your voice be heard. When it comes time to vote, when it's comes time to VOTE, make sure that you put that pen in it. Thank you for listening to the Buck Bites podcast. Hopefully y'all all love the podcast. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, YouTube. Make sure you hit that notification bell too. You heard me? From the 985 to the 601. Let's everybody get bit, son. Harf!